my family hails from Miami, and then we moved to Valdosta, Georgia. I was born in Hayhira, Georgia. Um, Grew up great, man. I had a good childhood.
Yeah.
Good childhood. I mean, we had a little bit of everything. We grew up with Big Mama still in the house. My grandma probably my best friend ever.
Granny's boy.
Oh, I was a granny's boy all the way. And me and my brothers and sisters will fight about who was the favorite all the time, but it was definitely me. And yeah, it was it was definitely me. And but yeah, I had a great childhood. I was brought up very old school, having Big Mama, and I'm talking about Big Mama, like now my grandmother would be well over 100 and some odd years old right now. And she, with my mom doing working, she's a police officer. She grandma was the rock of the house, and most of my family is older. My grandma had 16 kids.
Wow.
So I have a lot of uncles, aunts, cousins.
Mm-hmm.
So when they talk about that, it take a village. I had that village, from my family to the neighborhoods that we were in.
Mm-hmm. So being a granny's boy and growing up with grandma, I take it that you also were brought up in church?
You know it.
No? Mm-hmm.
You know
Mm-hmm.
it.
Of course, yep.
You
I mean,
know
it's kind of hard to think of anybody in a certain age group who grew up with grandma who, church wasn't a part of life.
Church.
Yep.
That's all I know, growing up in church.
Yep. But then you also, I mean, you served in the armed forces, right?
I did.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah. Oh, that was cool. And really, to be honest with you, my reasoning for going to the armed forces, it was never really a desire to go to the armed forces until things weren't going right, and I saw it as an avenue to get a fresh start and get away.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's go back then. Tell us about things not going right.
What's that?
I mean, you said things weren't going right.
Growing up?
Right. So you said things weren't going right. So that's why you went into the armed forces.
Oh yeah. So. Well, at that time, like I mean, we get to a certain age where like me and my mom's like relationship started to go downhill. And like I actually moved out of my house when I was 17, and went to go stay with a good friend of mine, who we actually just went and to a funeral of his father.
Okay.
But to stay until I graduated high school. And over time, me and my mom's relationship started to get better. But 3 days after I graduated high school, I was gone.
Wow, straight to the armed
Going
forces.
to the Navy.
Yeah, to the Navy. Yeah. And tell us about that experience.
That experience was very interesting. It was interesting not being home. Love being home, love being around my family. But it did give me a sense more of pride and accomplishment because I mean I was on my own and I was doing it. And at that time, my motivation was to not go back home. Like if it all falls down, the last place I want to go is go back home.
Wow.
So, I mean, I made the most out of it. But I'm one of them people anyway that if I'm in it, I'm trying to go all in.
Right. Okay. So then, how long did you serve?
6 years.
6 years, and thanks for your service, by the way.
Well, thank you, man.
Yeah. And then after you left, where did you go afterwards?
Afterwards, I'm married now at the time. I want to say when I got out, I was in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I was going to school for sports medicine. Got my degree up there at Old Dominion University, and started working with the UFL up there at the time. The league tanked eventually, and me and my family, we moved to Japan.
Go to Japan?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you speak the language?
No, no. I know a little bit. Yeah. I know a little bit to get by, but don't speak the language.
Okay. Okay. And what was the experience like? Like in
oh,
Japan?
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. You cannot recreate that experience ever.
Wow.
If I could go back and live, I would.
Wow.
I would. It was amazing, man.
Wow.
Life-changing event.
And how long were you there for?
4 years.
4 years, okay. And then you moved back to the States.
Yep, to the States. Yep.
And then
to Pensacola.
Yeah.
Yep, to Pensacola. And that was cool too. That's when at that time I was kind of out of my career field for a amount of time, and that's where I started like driving trucks. Went to truck driving school, and been driving ever since.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And now you're in. I think you're from Pensacola to Jacksonville.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's is that. And I'm gonna take it that this is where the story that you're about to today, you're about to tell today,
yes,
actually started. All right. Well, let's get into it.
Well, at this time, my wife at the time was deployed. She was in Japan, and like I had the kids, and one day, I breed American Bulldogs, right? So it's about 8 bulldogs in my backyard that I tend to every day, right? And one day I'm at work, I get a phone call that says that my dogs have been in a fight. So immediately I'm thinking, like, they got out the fence, like what's happened, because everything was locked up, when I left. So at the time, I'm talking to the animal control officers about, what happened at the time. They didn't really even know the full story, but they were at my house, and since I drive, I couldn't get directly back to to my house. So the animal control officer ended up giving me her contact information, so I can give her a call the next day. By the time I get home, there's no dad took one of my dogs from the backyard. So by this time, I really don't know what happened. So I finally connect with her. She showed me a video of the fight where one of my dogs had got out of his pen, had broken out of his pen, got to fighting with another dog, and that was the situation. And it kind of ended at that. Like, she checked everything, and I went into my file cabinet where I had all their shot records and stuff like that and showed her. So that was the end of that. She left the house, and that was it. About 2 months later, I get a knock at the door, and it's the police. It's like 7 police officers.
Wow.
And
full force.
They say, yeah. It was like they were there to serve a warrant for my arrest for animal cruelty. I asked a couple questions, and I thank God that they were in the right mind and the right spirit at that time to talk and to keep everything,
civilized,
real mellow, because at the time I had my kids were in the house. And so, I explained to them, like, hey, it's just me here. My kids are in the house, and they were like, well, we're not here to make a spectacle of anything. They allowed me to call and get somebody to come to the house, and they waited. Like, they never handcuffed me or anything. They just, I cooperated with them. They talked to me, and everything was cool. They waited till I got someone there to the house to take care of the kids, and then that's where we left when I got somebody to get the kids, and from there, that's where the craziness starts. Where I'm stuck in a mode, and right after that, like, I get out the following day, and at the time, like, I'm on probation, so I still have another call that I know is coming. because I know that eventually I'm gonna have to go turn myself in on this call, and by this time everything's kind of getting in order. I'm still working all the way up until this point. My wife at the time she comes back, she gets the kids, and that's why I leave and I go turn myself in. From that point is where the Lord really started doing work.
But before you get to that point, so so when the officers came to your house, they came because of that incident 2 months before.
Yes.
But you said with the animal control officer, things were squared away.
So I thought,
so what happened between then that would lead the officers to come?
From what my thing is that was the time of an investigation they were on or whatever, which gave them a point where they said, okay, it's enough. I guess it was enough evidence or whatever to
arrest you.
To arrest me.
Wow. Okay, and I take it you were surprised.
I was surprised, and the law, because I'm a big bookworm, was saying that you don't even have to do anything to be convicted of it. All they got this feel is that there's some type of neglect.
Wow. But as far as you said everything was under control. You had your place all locked up. The dog just
everything was locked up, and animals do what animals do. They wiggle out here and there, and it just so happened, and the dog got in a fight with another one of my dogs.
Oh, so it wasn't like a neighbor's dog; it's one of your dogs.
It was all in my backyard.
Wow. So neighbors called the
animal. Yep. The neighbor called animal control.
Wow.
Said there was a fight going on.
And this had never happened before, had it?
Nope.
So this whole episode must have taken you by surprise. You must have been in like what's happening here.
Oh yeah. Wow. Especially in the point of I'm not there and something's happening, and so it was a surprise that they showed up and was like, hey, you're being charged with, and I wasn't there at all.
Okay, so now let's get back to that point. Now you say, well, at this point now you're locked up.
Oh yeah. I'm locked up, and there's no bond. So
there's no bond.
There's no bond.
Wow.
So I have to see this process through.
Wow, that's interesting. And that must have been like you said it before. That must have been a shocker to your system.
Oh yeah. It was plummeting. Trust me, it take you by surprise when you hear that. But
you were now going to move to the point where you said, "No, God started working," because I'm just here sitting thinking that if that happens, then it would almost seem like your world is crumbling. Everything is like a blur around you.
Oh, it did. Oh, I felt like I'm walking around with this dark cloud over me.
Wow. All right, so let's talk to us now about when God started to.
Yeah.
Move.
So like I said, I turned myself in, and even that's a process. They make you wait on the outside for however long until they can find an officer to come do that. So they make you sit there and ponder on that thing. And so we eventually processed and went in, and then I went into my pod, and immediately, as we walk in, check in, I'm just thinking in my mind, like, how in the world did I get here? And, that same day, an individual came up to me and he asked me, and I'm at a point where I'm not in a talkative mood with anybody. Right. Like, I'm still processing everything that's going on. But this gentleman walk up to me and he says, "You look like you know the Lord." And I was like taken back by what he said. And he was like, "Yeah, you look like you know the Lord, man." And like I said, I only know every jail and whatever by movies that I had seen, stuff like that, right? So and they always tell you, whoever the first person is to come talk to you and not your friend, right? So I'm trying to figure out whether I should drop him right now. What? Like, I don't know. I don't know what to, what to do with what he said, but I, something just told me to conversate with the guy, and he was looking for somebody to read the Bible to him. And this is the first day I walk in.
Wow.
And he was like, "Hey man, I can't read, and I needed somebody to read the Bible," and that's kind of how it started.
Wow. But so hold up now. So you're here now processing. How did I get here?
Oh yeah.
Why am I here? I did nothing to get here. You heard there's no bond, so you're gonna be sitting out this process.
Yep. However long it takes.
And your first interaction with this is with somebody who wants you to read the Bible to them.
Who want me to read the Bible to them.
So let's go back now from from high school through serving the armed forces, college, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Were you still a practicing serving Christian?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So this part of it wasn't new to you, but it was surprising.
It was surprising.
Wow.
Because you don't know how the Lord works sometimes,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you know the word, you know that He can show up
anytime,
kind of way,
mm-hmm.
and at that moment, I'm like, okay, I see, Lord, you here with me,
mm-hmm.
Even though I'm in my feelings,
mm-hmm.
I know He was there with me,
Right. So all right, so He asked you to read the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
You did. I think you did. Right?
Oh yeah, and that moment started a big wave. Cause as I'm going through it, I'm soaking. I'm in my own head. I'm praying, and I'm really asking God why. Like, how did I get here? I'm dad. I'm husband. I'm this, I'm that. I'm living my life
mm-hmm.
right. Doing it all right. And I'm here and over a dog. I couldn't get past that for a while. But as time goes on, the guy, he kept asking, because at the first time he asked, I didn't necessarily move on it. But he kept asking, and I eventually started, going to the rec yard with him, and I started reading to him. We got like daily bread, things, and they give you Bibles or whatever. So I started reading to him, and as time goes on, the readings start to attract attention, because we're around, like we're on the rec yard. There are people playing basketball, walking the track, doing whatever,
mm-hmm.
and it starts accumulating attention. And all I'm doing is reading to them, studying the Word of God,
mm-hmm.
and people start sitting down at the table. The table is a good sized table, and there's about 6 seats around this table.
Mm-hmm.
So it started with just me and him, and then people started sitting down listening. We kept going, and after a while, that table was full.
Wow.
People wanted to, hear the word,
mm-hmm.
And as I'm, ministering to him and reading to him, and we're discussing the Bible, and I have a real way of reading the Bible. Like I attach the words to real life, and the way, like the way we struggle with things to this day, and people started to like it, and to the point where we're catching attention. Not only is the table getting full at this point, people are standing around. It's kind of looking like a huddle. So of course it gets the guards' attention. Like, hey man, what's going on out there? And they come out there and realize, hey, these guys are studying the word. And after a while, they asked us if we needed more space, because they couldn't let us huddle because the cameras didn't know what was going on in the huddle. So they opened up a classroom for us in the back, so we can go in there during that time and talk about the word, and discuss it. And I mean, we're having some conversations, some breakdowns, and people, wanting to be saved, and it was crazy because at the same time, my goal was never what it turned out to be,
right.
because we're in jail, we're, so I had no idea that was coming like that. But it started to spread where some of the officers started hearing about it in other places and started to come in and listen, and believers or whatever, and really listening, and they were like, man, these guys gonna miss you when you gone, because people don't just come in and he's like, whether you like it or not, you started a movement. Wow. And what you did. And at this time, I'm like, man, it wasn't me, because I never even wanted this, man.
Right.
I say that's how that's nothing but God, because, I'm not asking to be this.
Well, first of all,
well,
first of all, you're not asking to be in jail.
I'm definitely not asking to be in jail, but at the same time, I mean, I was told, or to spread the word no matter where I go. And that's what I was doing, and I didn't want to fight it, So if they wanted it, I had to be the one that was going to give it to them.
Right.
So by this time, it's getting a little closer, and, because I was in there for 6 months, and, I get that call that, hey, Spanjer, your charges have been dropped.
Whoa.
Right? So, let me tell you something. You talking about some shouting, you talking about some hollering. I was running around and they're crazy. And I was elated. And just to back up just a little bit, before that happened, while I'm in there, I get divorce papers, restraining order papers.
Restraining order?
Yeah, keeping me, so whenever I came out, I couldn't come near my house nor my kids. And I'm actively had to deal with that at the same time. And, by the grace of God, while I'm in there, I'm figuring out, right, and I'm gaining perspective on where I am, and there is people, right, whether it's criminal or whatever the case may be, that know law, know how to find what you're looking for. I guess they call them jailhouse lawyers, right? You start talking and sitting down with these individuals, and you find out it's some smart individuals
inside of there
in there that show you different things on how to maneuver and how to make things work. So as I'm studying and praying on all the situations, these guys, I mean, with the printout after printout, they're teaching me how to use the what do you call it, the notary, the notary guy, right, to get all these different documents and stuff that I'm writing to the courts, all these different things notarized, sent out, proofread, so that I would have the best chance at being heard. And so court days come up, and I almost handled my entire divorce in jail.
Whoa. And
was getting what I was asking for from it. The restraining order, I had to face a restraining order in jail on a Zoom call, and I won that. All that got dismissed in an orange jumpsuit. Now that don't tell you that God worked. God be working, because we talk about image and how image portrays things, and I got to go to court in an orange jumpsuit. So you know what I'm saying? So and I remember the judge kept asking me, he's like, you're not in there for none of it. I'm like, no, this has nothing to do with, this is something extra.
Wow.
This is a time where I'm in a place where this is trying to be taken advantage of right now. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, after I won that, even the guy that I was with, he said, "Man, you handled yourself really well," you know. And I was, man, I'm talking about, I was shouting. People had to hush, cause you know when you, like, I'm a dad, you know, and I've been a dad, and I'm serious about my kids and my family. They I was elated that when I came home that I can come to them and give them a hug and all this stuff, and
because I'm sure by now you'd have missed them all this time.
Oh yeah,
basically robbed from you.
Right. And you know they knew, and you know I would talk to them while I was in there some, and they understood the situation, and they were kind of floored about the whole situation. So they were very, like, you know, some stuff you try to hide your kids from, but some things you just can't, you know. I hated it for them, and they knew exactly what happened. So yeah, I dealt with the divorce in there, and you know, even the guards were like, "Man, somebody is after you," like, you know, something. And I was like, "Man, look, I'm good." At this point, I'm prayed up, even though I'm leading the ministry group. I am reading the Word of God. I'm still in my feelings about the situation.
Right.
Cause you know, at the end of the day, I want to get out of here. And the craziest thing for me was being wrapped in this space is that, you know, the Lord allowed me to kind of be free of different things, because I know for a fact that if I wasn't in that situation, I would never be free of that, the marriage, the certain stresses and responsibilities and stuff that was put on me that would only bring me back into like darkness.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So what I hear you saying here is that as bad as the situation was,
oh yeah,
in that moment you're still in your feelings.
Oh, I'm still in my feelings.
Nobody wants to go through.
Yeah, that. I'm still in my feelings.
But
there's a greater call over your feelings.
Yeah.
Than
God was actually doing something.
Yeah, God was doing
supernaturally in your life.
And I can see it. And no matter what my feelings were saying or doing, there was a purpose in why I was there. Because you take a guy who this is not his life and put him in that situation and that kind of reaction in jail. You know, where we talking about could be murderers, all kind of individuals around you, and you know, being able to point the attention to the Lord, man, was great.
So did you ever go through any of, like, you know, the violent situations where people came at you or any of that kind of a thing? You know,
that's a good question, right? You know, when I went in there, it was crazy. And one, maybe because my size, because I ain't a small guy, so they, you know, people ain't just going this. But I actually, and that's interesting, because you know, if you watch the first 48 of all these different shows, you know, it's always that guy that just runs stuff, right? So I'm and he made himself known immediately, right? He's loud. He just like you think about it. He's loud, big guy, right? Tattooed, and I'm like, oh God, this is gonna be a problem, man. I see it now, right? And the craziest thing happened. Is he came up to me and he started asking me questions about, like, my family and who I was, because, you know, I looked like somebody that he knew. And in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking, like, oh Lord, here we go, right? Here we go. And the craziest thing happened is we connected from jump.
Wow.
And
in a good way.
In a good way. And the crazy thing was, one of his cousin was in there with him. And these are older gentlemen, like, these guys were like in their 40s. And we all just meshed. And they were actually coming to the Bible study classes too.
Wow.
And, even at some points, I had this big guy running around, not demanding people to come, but he was definitely a reason why more people started coming.
Because
let me tell you, he was the big guy now, and all the things that you would think he was doing and taking for, he was doing it. He was doing it now. He was taking, he was fighting, he was doing all that, but we never had that energy. And I try to check on him to this day because I still stay in contact with his cousin. But he was a good spirited individual, and I loved him, man. It was like a brother while I was in there.
Wow. Spanjer, your story, man, is, I know the cliche word is crazy, but it's amazing. It's a story. I can't say I've ever heard this story.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? All the other stories I've heard of, people who have gone in there and they've gone through the cycle of going through everything, right. And then at some point waking up to the realization that, I could be better. Things could be different. But for you, it's almost as if you're saying that your conclusion now is that God literally walked you in there.
God was with me the entire time.
With a mission.
He was with me the entire time.
Wow, 6 months.
6 months.
Man. And then at the end of 6 months, at the end of it, you're told that your charges are dropped.
Charges are dropped.
And you had to fight divorce. Basically losing your children.
Yeah.
Man. So
all that.
Talk to us now, Spanjer. What kind of a fortitude does a man need to go through all of that? Live through it with a positive attitude, despite being in your feelings now, and now to walk out and to sit here and to speak to us about it because obviously you accepted this a long time ago and you're at peace with it and everything is good, and you accepted that God was doing something with you and through you. But what kind of a fortitude it took for you to actually stand in there and to hold it together?
It took everything I had. It took me being totally reliant on the Lord. Because at some point, feelings escape you. At some point, it's just you and him, and the world around you doesn't really matter as much. When you got the Lord guiding you and directing you and telling you that you have divine purpose, the rest just kind of escapes you. Like, what you're going through is not the biggest thing. Like, it'll end. But I have purpose for you now, and this is what I need you to walk through to get you here. So it took everything I had to let go of my mindset and the way I thought to release it all and give it to the Lord. Took everything.
Yeah. So now that that episode is behind you, looking now, how has it changed you, and how have you led life now that you've been through all of that and you saw God showed you what he showed you? How now do you live life? What's life like now?
One, I don't mess around with no dogs that much, for real. I can tell you that. But I found it. I found a greater appreciation for individuals that go through unforeseen circumstances. I've been around family, my dad, my brother being in and out, but it's different when it's you. when I got out, I told myself and I spoke to the Lord about the direction moving forward and what I absolutely owed him. Mm-hmm. And that was me. Full unadulterated me, every part of me. And that I was going to drive in and trust the process no matter what I went through in life. Since then, it's touched lives since I got out. My friends, my family. My daughter gave her life to Christ, which was amazing. That came from, and I guess just by hearing me and being around me, it hit because, at this point you see them as kids. Mm-hmm. And for her to come to me and it caught me off guard that what I'm doing is not, in vain.
Right.
That people are hearing it and mm-hmm. people are listening. Mm-hmm. Even now on the job, we got a coworker that from me, from working around me, he's coming and he's, trusting and believing that the Lord has something for him, mm-hmm. And this is not how this kid was brought up, mm-hmm. but he's trusting and believing that the Lord has something for him, right. based off what he's seen through me,
right?
And I take him under my wing, and I try to provide the best example that I can of a person striving to do right, mm-hmm. not perfect, but striving to do right mm-hmm. by the Lord.
Yeah.
But I owe it all to the Lord.
Yeah. Spanjer, man, your story, it's just amazing. And we speak of you being locked up, but freedom came, and we know the Bible says, mm-hmm. he who the Son sets free
is free indeed.
Is free indeed.
Yes.
And you've now found even greater purpose for your life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna ask Spanjer to encourage somebody out there who, because one of the things that we know is that the enemy, the devil, he has a way of trying to convince us that our God mm-hmm. has left us on our own. Despite his word saying he will never, mm-hmm. ever leave us. But when these hard times come, mm-hmm. that's what the enemy tells you.
Oh, yeah.
And he plays with your mind. But here you are, a living testimony, a living testament to having mm-hmm. gone through something awful.
Oh, yeah.
Not that you did anything, but
mm-hmm.
but in the midst of it, you were able to see God in it,
right.
taking you through. There are lots of people out there, Spanjer, who they're going through things, and that's why we do these programs, so
mm-hmm.
we can spread the word, we can motivate and inspire,
right?
So that people going through whatever they're going through
mm-hmm.
will understand that. Look to the hills.
Oh yeah.
Look to the hills. So Spanjer, go ahead, encourage somebody today.
When I was coming up and my youth choir as a kid, we always sung this song called Jesus is a Shelter in the Time of a Storm. And I've always been taught that you can always find Jesus. You can always find the light in any situation. If you continue to walk through and seek his face. It's never too dark. You're never too far away from the light. There's always a way if you look for it. Just trust and call on him and you'll be all right.
All right, Spanjer. Well, obviously you are all right, man, because he brought you through.
I'm good, man.
Your story is brother. Thanks for sharing. Yes, sir. Man. Thanks for sharing. And,
no problem, man.
If we can change just one life, if we can change just one life, it's well worth it.
It's worth it.
It's worth it. And we know the way God works, it's never going to be one. It's going to be 1,000, 2,000.
Oh, yeah.
We know how he does it. So
oh, yeah.
Thanks again, brother.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Thanks
sir.
for having me.